What's up guys, Ed here back with another video. In this video I just want to talk about some changes I've made to the game. It might be a short video, I don't know, depends on how I explain everything. But first things first, if you guys remember from my last video, the damage and stuff, it was because the damage is the biggest change for the game. Um, Before you used life points or soul points, uh, but now the damage system is more like Vanguard. So it kind of has a sort of Duel Masters feel, just like in reverse. But this does help actually balance some things out. Before I had a problem where I felt like one deck might be too OP, uh, and actually right it was two different elements were too OP. It was darkness and it was fire. Uh, Darkness had a lot of removal and fire had a lot of it had a removal as well, but it had like a lot of power. So you didn't really had to use the removal that much. It mostly had a lot of power ramping and then just like OTK, and that was something I really did not want in the game. So I had to change it to the damage system from Vanguard. With some help though, I did make it work with the game. I think it was two people that helped me sort of like work with it and just like help me. They help give me ideas to sort of like make the damage system work with my game. Thanks to them, I don't remember their names. That sucks. If they watch this, they know who they are. I doubt it though. My obscure little tiny channel. Anyways, one of the decks that are kind of suffering from from the change from life points to the new damage system is the darkness deck. Before it used to be really OP, but now it's sort of like it's too slow. So I mean that's a good thing, which means I can have fun like making support for it, but it's a lot slower now. One thing I want to say, fire is still pretty good, and nature is just as good. They both right now they're probably the fastest elements in the game right now. Water takes time, but it can if you give it the time to catch up, it'll wreck your shit. It's the game is just looking really nice now, and I'm really happy that that's starting to come along like well. Light is light. Honestly, it can wreck shit or it can't. It's sort of like the same with water if you give it enough time. Uh, and I had this. I remember having this discussion with Cards at Home. If you know him, I think he watches my YouTube channel. If not, then what are you doing with your life, man? Subscribe. Anyways, I know he was talking about how he didn't like how Duel Masters sort of had like where a few civilizations only had blockers. Um, I hated that too until like I'm starting like using this damage system. I realized why that is. It's because fire and nature is so fucking like aggressive and fast that if you were to just give them shields, I feel like it wouldn't be fair. So that's the thing with my game. There will be certain abilities that some cards, that some elements will have and some elements will not have. Right now, because I'm going to bring back an old mechanic called Shield. Shield is basically, if you're familiar with the game Shadowverse, it's basically like Ward. Or if you're not familiar with Shadowverse, just think the Dupe Frog lock, just without the bullshit. Basically what it means is while there is a creature with shield on the battlefield, then your opponent can only target creatures with shield. So let's say if you have two shields, then no, it doesn't lock out. No, they can choose who they want to attack. Some elements have it, some don't. Right now, the only ones that don't have it is nature and fire, because nature is actually really fast and fire has a lot of removal. And just I think it'd be fair to just fire is Kagero. Okay, just think that, and it'd be fair to the other elements to have a sort of like defense. To give them time to just collect their shit together and just go out into the real world, into actual adults, and then do their thing. um, what else is there? Also, another ability. It's called Rush. The only right now, I think the only elements I'm going to allow to have rush is, by the way, rush is basically this game's equivalent to haste. It used to be different because of the old rules where there used to be multiple different zones. There used to be a standby zone and there used to be the battlefield zone, and basically there was no summoning sickness. You could just move it. Rush just meant you can move them around. Um, but in my game, it's basically haste. Now, the only ones that have rush is nature, fire, and I think light, or those will be the only ones. And then there's another ability called adrenaline. Adrenaline, adrenaline and double hit. Adrenaline is basically, it's if you're familiar with magic, it's basically vigilance, except not. Basically, what it does is whenever your creature attacks or it's tapped, or in my game, it's called exhaust. At the end of the turn, the creature is refreshed or untapped. So they tap during the turn, so you know you can't do some slick shit. The reason why this is because a creature can attack as many times as long as it's refreshed. So that's why I made it to where it refreshes at the end of the turn. And then double hit is basically this game's equivalent to double breaker, but since there's no shields, it's sort of like instead of dealing, because each soul can only deal one damage when it attacks, but if it has double hit, then it deals two damage. So it's like adding another crit um, to your thing. What else is there? Um, oh yeah, there's a new spell. The spell area is different. So there's no longer a standby area, but what there is now is a spell area behind the battlefield, and you can only have a max of 5 cards uh, per turn, if that makes sense. So basically, what it is whenever you play a spell, it stays in the spell zone until the end of the turn, unless it has the trait blessing or the ability blessing. Blessings are basically like your continuous trap cards. Just think that. So yeah, blessings stay there. You can only have a max of 5. So let's say you have 3 blessings, right, in your spell zone, and you have enough to pay, I don't know, for 5 different spells this turn. Every time you play a spell, it stays there until the end of the turn. So once you reach 5 spells, no more spells can fit in your spell zone. So you won't be able to play any more spells, unless you have a card with an ability. I might do this, that has an ability to remove spells from the spell zone. It's whatever. Also, shout out to Lard, because Lard, I think that's how you said it, Lard from Vanguard, because that actually inspired a creature that's going to show itself in this game, and it's going to wreck shit. It's going to be a very high risk, high reward card. But anyways, what was I talking about? Right. So the spells. Yeah, that's basically the idea of what the spells are. Blessings are basically continuous spells. If you play Yu-Gi-Oh, and they stay there, taking up space. Or amulets, if you're familiar with uh, Vanguard. I mean, not Vanguard. What's it called? Shadowverse. Yeah, this game used to be heavily inspired by Shadowverse. Before it was inspired, the gameplay was more inspired by Marvel vs. Capcom mixed with Bloodborne, but I mean, it could still be done. It wasn't bad, but like it still needs to be tweaked on a bit. But yeah, now it's this. So the game it plays very similarly to Duel Masters a little, except without the shields. It's like in reverse. As for okay, so like now to the main thing for like the damage system is it's like your basic Vanguard. The creatures now have summoning sickness, so they can't attack on the turn that you summon them. On the turn that they are able to attack, whenever they attack, they only deal 1 damage. The defending player that's taking the damage can choose to reduce the damage by 1 for each card they discard, or they can take the damage, meaning they reveal the top card for a trigger check. Yes, there are triggers in this game, but they're not like Vanguard triggers. They're kind of more like shield triggers, meaning any card can be a trigger if it has the trigger ability. Now, what I mean by reduced damage, and the other, like I just said before, so let's say your opponent is attacking you with a card that has double hit, and and you're like close to dying. By the way, you can only take a max damage of 6. you can discard cards from your hand to reduce each point of damage. So if you want to reduce one damage, you discard one card. If you want to reduce the two, all all the damage. So since it's a double hit, it deals two damage. You have to discard two cards, or you can just let it through. Now, if you choose to discard one card to reduce only one damage, any excess damage that's left over is taken. Instead of doing a trigger check for two damage, you only do a trigger check for one. Now, to the triggers are like I said before, they're kind of like dual master triggers where it could be a spell or a creature. There's two different types of triggers. Just like I said, spell or creature. So there's spell triggers and there's soul triggers. Spell triggers are basically spells that have the trigger ability, and when you pull that during your trigger check, you put it to your damage zone, and you can activate the ability. You don't have to. You can activate the ability. You activate it without paying the cost, so it's for free. But the damage still goes to the card still goes to your damage zone. Hopefully, that made sense. Now, if it's a soul trigger, it's basically a soul or a creature that has the trigger ability, and instead of sending it to your damage zone, it gets summoned to the field, without paying the cost, of course. Now, that's basically your only way to heal. uh, I'm still trying to figure out what would be a good ratio because I don't want to just have like a deck that's full of just triggers and stuff like that. I feel like there should be a limit on that. I need to find out what's a good ratio for that. But so far, the game works nicely with this change. Let's see what else do I have to cover. I think I mentioned shields. Uh, if not, then shields are basically like your dupe frog lock. Just instead of not being able to attack, you can choose a card that has you can. So like if your opponent has two shields on the field, then you get to choose which one you want to attack. It doesn't lock you out of attacking. Also, shields, they you are allowed to attack a shield while it's refreshed. Most of the time, you can only attack a creature a soul while they are exhausted, but not with shields. Shields can just go ham on shields. It's slap them across the field if you want to, punt them. Dang, now I want to watch rugby. Anyways, that was random. What else is there? There will be some cards like it's not all elements will have this, because a friend is telling me like if I make, I don't want there to be like a specific play style, but I do want there to be a theme depending on the element. So my friend is sort of helping me with that because I don't know, just like play Magic and stuff like that. I've been so forced to like make the cards like play the decks play a certain way. But he's actually opening my eyes into more creative ways of making cards and stuff like that. So completed decks right now there are three completed decks because I have to fix the darkness deck. I used to be four, but now it's just three. Hopefully I can get the game out before the end of the year. Don't quote me on this, but hopefully, if not, then a little bit after the year ends. Almost forgot. So you know how in Vanguard the damage zone can be used for resources? That is also a thing in my game. So the more damage you take, so it's sort of like so if you were to take 3 damage in one turn, you have you have how do I explain this? Okay, so the game does use resources. You build resources like you would in Duel Master slash Kaijudo. Any face up cards in your damage zone are treated can be used as resource, but only like once. So once that card flips over, it does not flip over again. It stays face down. Cards in your damage zone are only counted as neutral resource, because there's a six. Not it's basically colorless, but it's neutral. Your cards can only cards in your damage zone are only counted as neutral. So let's say your opponent just messed you up real bad, but you have a lot of damage. You don't have enough resource, but you have a card in your hand that costs a lot, and you can summon it. You can use your damage zone to summon that card. So it's kind of like to help like a sort of comeback type thing. Um, it's not broken. I can tell you that it's fair. It works. I really like that it works. Um, so that's one thing. Yeah, you can use the resource zone. You can use your damage zone as a resource zone, but the card's only once. Like I said before, there will be some elements. Right now, the only elements that I can think that can heal you are light and nature. Those, I think those might be the only ones. Because I don't want this to be like a crazy thing. There will be like sort of like cards that kind of cross with each other. How do I say? Mixing, like, okay, so like there's traits in my game, right? One of the traits for cards are is like the Phoenix. Uh, one of the I have one Phoenix down, actually two of them. Phoenixes, you'll mostly find them in fire and in light, and so you can have a pretty decent healing deck that focuses on with around Phoenixes, because the Phoenixes will have sort of comeback abilities where they're either summoned from the graveyard or come out of the damage zone, so you can heal yourself that way. Yeah, the game is actually kind of quick. It can be quick. It takes around the average time of what most card games take, but it's not too long. It works really well. I'm really happy with it. I want to play test it more though. I want to see what else I can do. But yeah, I think that's all I can think of right now. If you guys have any questions, please ask me in the comments, and I'll try to answer them in a way that makes a lot of sense. Because if you, as you can tell, I'm not sure if you can tell through these videos, but I'm very bad at explaining stuff, especially through writing. But yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Peace.